Which is the best German compact performance car? Is it Mercedes AMG A45s or the new Audi RS3? Well, in this video I'm going to find out by comparing their engines, the noise they make, how well they stop. I'm going to compare their exteriors, their interiors, how practical they are, and of course what they like to drive. I'm also going to see which is the quickest from 0 to 60 miles an hour, because I'm Matt Watson and you're watching Carwow. Buy, sell, Carwow. Let's start this video by talking about the prices. So the Audi RS3 starts from £55,000 for the hatchback. It's an extra £1,000 for this saloon version. Now the Mercedes, it starts from £59,000. But it comes with more kit as standard. For instance, it gets adaptive dampers, whereas they're an option on this. They'll fit to this car, but they're £1,000 extra. And when you compare spec for spec and match them up, they roughly come to about the same price. Now, if you're thinking about changing your car, you need to do some research. And you want to make sure that you're paying a fair price and want to see if there's any discounts available. Click on the pop-out banner up there or follow the link in the description below to go to Carwow. You can also sell your current car through Carwow as well to find out how much it's really worth. You just upload some photos, then our dealers will bid on your car and you can just pick the best offer. It's completely free. If you want to do that at a later date, simply Google "Help Me Carwow" and me and my team will help you. These cars may seem pretty expensive considering their size, but what are you paying for? Their engines. So here in the Audi, you've got a beautiful 2.5 litre, 5-cylinder single turbo petrol that puts out 400 horsepower and 500 Newton meters. It drives all four wheels via a 7-speed dual clutch automatic gearbox with launch control. Audi says it'll do 0 to 60 in 3.8 seconds, and we'll find out a bit later in this video when I launch it. Top speed is limited to 155 miles an hour, but you can pay Audi some extra money and take it all the way up to 180 miles an hour. The Mercedes AMG has a 2-litre 4-cylinder turbo petrol, and that means it's down a cylinder compared to the Audi, but it doesn't matter. It's got more power, 421 horsepower. In fact, this is the most powerful 2-litre 4-cylinder production engine in the world, and it's been hand-assembled in Alphalterbach by a man called Michael Schumann. You don't have such kind of frippery on the Audi. Also, the torque of that is the same as the Audi, 500 Newton meters, and it drives all four wheels via an 8-speed dual clutch automatic gearbox with launch control. Now, Mercedes AMG says that this car will do 0 to 60 in 3.7 seconds, so in theory, it's quicker than the Audi, but is it in reality? Well, we're going to find out later on. Top speed is slower than the Audi though, 170 miles an hour maximum. However, unlike with the Audi, you don't have to pay Mercedes AMG some extra cash in order to get the maximum top speed. Let's compare how these engines sound. I'm going to start with the Audi because 5 cylinders, it should be the best, right? Go on, start up the Audi. It's got the optional sports exhaust on it, so you don't get that on the entry-level car. You have to move up the range to get it. So go on, rev it up. All right, there we go, Audi soft limiter, brilliant. Let's see if a 4-cylinder engine sounds better. Go on, start the Mercedes. At least it hasn't got a soft limiter, and you do get the odd parpy bits at the top end of the rev range. Still, neither sounds brilliant. Let me know your thoughts. Put a pin comment in the video. Vote which of these cars sounds the least crap. Let's move on to the brakes. The A45s has 360mm disc at front, 330s at the rear, and the front calipers have 6 pistons in them. The ones at the back, only 1. Let's see how strong they are when it comes to stopping. Okay, emergency stop then from 60 miles an hour in the A45. What's it going to do? Oh, it stopped in 33 meters. That's pretty decent. The Audi RS3 has 375mm discs up front, gripped by 6-piston calipers, and only 310mm discs at the back, gripped by a single piston caliper. You can actually upgrade to carbon ceramics like you can't on the Mercedes AMG. Then you get 380mm discs up front. They're not cheap though. £4,500. Now before we brake test this car, I just want to show you something. The RS3 comes on Pirelli P0 tyres. The Mercedes has Michelin Pilot Sport 4S tyres. Now will that affect the braking? Let's find out. Okay, let's brake test this Audi. What we're going to do, here we go, 60 miles an hour, full emergency stop now. Oh, okay, so it's stopped from 60 miles an hour, 32 meters. That's really good. And it beat the Mercedes. Let's compare the designs of these cars. So obviously this is the saloon version of the RS3, which does look better than the hatchback, but the hatchback is still a good looking car. I really like the slight flariness of the front wheel arches, and those vents, they are real. They're not fake. Overall, it looks sporty, but quite understated. A bit expensive looking actually. the AMG is much more overtly a performance car. It is not ashamed as to what it is. In fact, it likes to flaunt it. Check out the area here at the front and that big wing at the back. Also, it's got quad tailpipes, though they're a little bit of a lie. If you look beyond those tips, you'll see that two tips actually have just one normal real exhaust behind them. Compare that to the Audi, which has two big oval pipes. But if you look inside those, you'll see that they're just tips, and inside each tip is actually two real exhausts. Now I'm confused, and if you haven't subscribed to this channel already, you're probably confused. So make sure you do it and hit the bell icon to turn your notifications on. That way you won't miss any of that kind of insightful motoring journalism that no one else picks up on. The interior design of the A45 is a work of art. I love this dash design. The infotainment system is really good as well. It's easy to use and connectivity is faultless with your Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. Also, I like the shiny bits. It just lifts the cabin, makes it feel special, though some of the quality is a bit superficial. Yeah. Anyway, I like this sporty steering wheel with the Alcantara on it and the bucket seats, which really grab you nice and firmly. After the A45, the interior of the RS3 is a little bit bland and odd. What's with the air vents up here? It's all a bit dark as well, but quality, bit better than the Mercedes. There's no rattle there, but I found one here. In fact, Audi's quality used to be way above their key competitors, but now the gap has really narrowed. They just don't feel as well built as they used to do, to tell you the truth. The sporty steering wheel is all right, but it's lacking Alcantara like in the Mercedes. The seats don't feel quite as sporty as in the AMG either. They're a bit more like armchairs and don't hold you quite so tightly. Then there's the infotainment system. It's pretty decent, though not quite as good as in the Mercedes. And sometimes when you're trying to connect your phone to Apple CarPlay or Android Auto wirelessly, it doesn't always work. The RS3 rides 25mm lower to the ground than a normal A3 and 10mm lower than even an S3. It also has uprated springs, dampers and anti-roll bars. The track at the front has been widened for the RS3 as well, and it's been given more negative camber. All this is designed to improve front end bite. In fact, the front tyres are actually slightly wider than the rear tyres. The quattro all-wheel drive system can send 50% of the engine's power to the rear wheels when the fronts start to slip. Also, it's got a clever electronically controlled rear differential, which can send 100% of that 50% of power that's gone to a rear to either of the rear tyres, depending on which one has the most grip. The idea being that when you're turning into a corner that way, it can overspeed the outside rear wheel to really get you turning. In fact, it can even allow you to drift this car because it has a drift mode. And this is me drifting an RS3. In addition to that clever rear differential, the RS3 also has a limited slip differential at the front. The A45s is pretty much the same setup. So you've got lowered suspension compared to an A-Class by 28mm. It's also got rated anti-roll bars, springs, dampers. Obviously the dampers on this are adaptive as standard, and like with the Audi we have to pay extra for them. You've got a Haldex four-wheel drive system which can send 50% of the engine's power to the rear wheels if the front starts to slip, and you've got a clever electronically controlled rear differential again, which works just like the Audis. The Mercedes actually came in with theirs first, so nah. Anyway, here's me drifting a Mercedes AMG A45s. Just like the Audi, the A45s has a limited slip differential on the front axle as well. Now, if you'd like to see me put one of these A45Ss up against a Toyota GR Yaris and a Honda Civic Type R in a range of track challenges, click on the pop-out banner up there for the link in the description below. The RS3 used to be a straight line only kind of car, bit of an understeery mess in the bends. This new one though is a different story entirely. The front just bites way better than it ever used to, and then you've got that clever diff on the rear axle just helping overspeed the outside rear tyre. It just gets you turning around the corner so much better. It feels really natural as well, not electronic or artificial. They've done a good job with that. The suspension is pretty decent as well. I'm actually in the firmest setting for the adaptive dampers that are fitted to this car as an option. I'm going to put it into my own preferred settings for the car, which is everything on maximum performance, but the suspension softer, and it's better for our bumpy British roads. The car doesn't lean too much in the bends even when you have it in the softer setting, so that is much better for covering ground quickly. It also means that you just got more grip. What I'm not so keen on, the steering just feels a bit light and artificial even when you have it in its heaviest setting. It's all right when you're just pootling about around town, but when you want to have some fun, you need a bit more weight to the steering really. One thing I'm not going to complain about though is the engine. It's as juicy and as fruity as ever. However, it does need to be spun quite high to get the most out of it. And because the gearbox isn't the slickest, you sometimes just end up in too low a gear and then you're in the turbo lag zone and it's not really providing the fireworks that you'd expect. So you do have to work at this engine. One thing I do remember about the RS3 is that as a daily driver, it's always been good, and this one is even better. Overall though, this new RS3 is better on a twisted road than it ever was before, and like the previous generation car, it's still a great all-rounder. So compared to some of its competitors, it's pretty quiet when you're just cruising on the motorway. And while these seats aren't ideal for hooning down the back row because they don't quite hold you in place as well as you might like, on a longer journey, they're very, very relaxing. Mercedes AMG A45s, what you got? Right from the get-go, this feels like a crazy, little, angry, sporty, lively little thing. Everything about it is just more responsive than the Audi, and it's more fun. Let's talk about the steering. It's just got a bit more weight to it. The car turns in sharper. Also, that diff, it seems a little bit more aggressive on this. One thing you do notice though is that the four-wheel drive system itself doesn't feel as sophisticated. So you can feel like this is a front-wheel drive car, and then it's, oh, I need to send power to the back, and then it does, and then it goes, oh, I need to oversteer the outside rear wheel, then it does. So it's not quite as progressive as the Audi, but it does just somehow feel more fun and more alert and more alive. The engine as well, this is the big surprise for me. Who'd have thought that a 2-litre 4-cylinder is better than a 2.5 5-cylinder? But here, in the case of this A45s, it is. Also, the gearbox in this A45s is better matched to its engine than the gearbox in the RS3 is. It just always seems to be in the right gear. You don't seem to be like left floundering in a hole of turbo lag if you haven't chosen the right gear, because somehow you just automatically have. And the way this engine just gets you to really rev it all the way out, and the power builds and builds and builds, and the noise builds and builds and builds. It's got more drama. Also, the brakes just seem a little bit more on it as well. The pedal feel and the response you get from them is just sharper. It just makes the car feel more aggressive, more like it's been designed solely with the purpose of fun in mind. And that brings me on to the suspension. You see, it's noticeably firmer than the Audis. In fact, in comfort setting, it's not really that much softer than the Audi in its sportier setting. Don't mind too much though, because it's not terrible and the car is just so flat through the turns. When I'm driving, I actually have the suspension in the comfort setting and everything else in maximum attack. Also, when you're in manual mode, it just seems to respond quicker to both changing down and changing up. It's just seamless. You're probably no quicker actually than you are in the Audi, it just feels it. Although they also have to be good for cruising, don't they? And this is not as good dailying as the Audi. Seats for starters, they're better for holding you in place when you go around corners quickly, but they're quite firm. So over a longer journey, bum does get tired. Also, the car's just noisier on the motorway, just you get a bit more road noise. It's not quite as relaxing, but I can put up with that just because this car feels more entertaining. And that's sort of the whole point of buying a hot hatch in the first place, right? Hot hatches aren't just about performance and having fun. They also need to be practical. And there is enough room in the back of this A45. Look, headroom's all right, knee room's all right. There's not much foot space, but I can live with that. Now, I just want to say a thank you to the chap who lent us this car to review. The tag will be popping up on screen now. Go head over to his account and say, thanks for lending Carwow your car. It helps us get more cars. In the back of the Audi, there's about the same amount of knee room. Foot space is a little bit better, but headroom is tighter than the AMG, though it is better in the RS3 Sportback than this saloon. Also, it just feels a bit darker in here than the Mercedes. Bizarrely, the saloon is actually more practical than the hatchback when it comes to boot capacity. You see, this saloon has 321 litres, but the RS3 hatchback only has 281 litres of boot capacity, which is odd. Now, this Mercedes, though, 370 litres of space. Now, I've actually found a deal on one of these cars through Carwow. If you want to find out which car it is and what the deal is, click on the pop-out banner up there for the link in the description below. Anyway, enough of that. Let's launch these cars. Okay, now I'm going to launch the little Mercedes AMG A45s. What's it going to do? The way this sets off is mental. The gear changes are brilliant. Whoa! 3.83 seconds. Wow. Time for the Audi. Can it beat the Mercedes? Launch control. Oh, there we go. There's a 60. 3.9 seconds dead. So the Mercedes just beat it. However, I have had quicker times out of both these cars, and this is what I got out of the Audi. Oh, sweet launch. 0 to 60, 3.6 seconds. And this is what I got out of the Mercedes.
That's 16, 3.65 seconds.
And if you want to find out exactly what I mean, click on the pop-out banner up there for the link in the description below to watch my drag race video between the new Audi RS3 and the Mercedes AMG A45s, plus some other cars. So then, what's my final verdict? Well, the Audi RS3 is really good. So it's easy to live with every day. It looks great, especially in this saloon body style. It's fast and it's fun. However, it's not as much fun as the Mercedes AMG. Yes, it's a little bit harder to live with, but it's doable. And it'll put a bigger smile on your face when you send it down a country road. And really, that's what these cars are all about. And that's why the Mercedes AMG wins this test.